I'll open it up for public comment. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Following the January 20th meeting, Local 1 negotiating team met with City Manager in good faith to discuss a few of the final details. The most significant of these issues is the deferral of the portion of the COLA that was discussed earlier in Nancy's presentation. And the change is reflected in the City Manager's proposal. On January 29th, the Local 1 membership voted overwhelmingly to support the proposal that's before you this evening. We do understand the severity of the national economic crisis, and we are committed to working with the city through the local impacts of this crisis. Local 1 appreciates the efforts that have been put into this proposal by the city, city council, city management team, as well as all employees and other associations within the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Jason, I would just like to publicly thank you and all of the members of Local Unit 1. Actually, and I want to thank all of our labor groups for their willingness to move forward and to do what's right and to make those sacrifices. It's not easy to have to go through this process. While it's difficult for us, you have, and the rest of the represented employees and the non-represented employees have lessened that burden somewhat, and I want to personally thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions of Jason? Any other public comment? Yes, Mr. Alexander.
Steve Alexander, 625 Devonshire. I just have one question. I was following the slide there. Excuse me if my voice is a little bit raspy. But I heard city manager say that the city hall will be closed on the first Friday starting in March. So that'll be March, April, May, June. Four days for this fiscal year. And then I saw in the slide it said that the city staff has taken a 5% cut of 96 hours. And I'm just wondering, when does that 96 hours start? Is that retroactive back to the beginning of this fiscal year? And the reason I ask this question is because I also heard the city manager say, you know, it's starting on March 1st, but it could go on through 2009 and 2010. And I guess my question is, where does the 96 hours come in?
The 96 hours is an annual number, so it's 1 day per month. That's 96 hours a year. So it is equate to 4.6% annual compensation reduction.
Okay,
so this fiscal year, there's only 4 days scheduled: March, April, May, June. That's correct. And then the next fiscal year would be 12 days.
So it'll be 32 hours for this fiscal year, and then 96 for next fiscal year.
96 hours for an annual basis. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments from the audience? John? Again, let me publicly apologize for screwing up your first name.
My name is John Tice. I'm an associate civil engineer in the engineering department, and I'm the engineer that's been working on the wastewater issues quite heavily. However, I'm speaking on my own behalf tonight, not representing Local 1 or anything. I'm one of the people that will be affected by this, and I wanted to be in front of you and say that and let you know that. And I would hope and wish that you would consider other alternatives to labor cuts, not only for myself but for the other 3 people that would be affected also, and the ones that have had their hours proposed to be cut to 50% time, because having us not have a job, I don't think is the best thing to have. Maybe an example to take is people at Stanford University came up with a great idea. Let's cut 10% top all the way down to the bottom, keep all our people employed, so when that student rush comes back, when the economy comes back, we're all ready to go. And that's pretty much all I had to say.
Thank you, John.
I've got a question for you, John.
Sure, Mike.
Are you being proposed to be laid off, reduced in hours? What is the...
I am proposed to be laid off.
Completely?
Yes, I have the lowest seniority in my classification at this time.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other public comment? Mr. Dreska?
Drew Graska, 540 Cypress, Mayor, council members, city staff. I reviewed all his documents, and I'm glad to see that there aren't any, reductions in police and fire, and I commend the fire on their recent contract. But the pain is already being experienced by the public as far as these economic times, and I don't think the city should be any different. I think reductions, perhaps, there are many other ways and many other possible ways to be able to make these numbers work based upon usage rather than across the board as far as the departments and how they're being utilized, I think, and how they're needed could also be looked at, and their time of work could also be reduced depending upon the amount of traffic they're seeing. An analysis based on that use, I think, would work. Further investigation of additional shifts of expenditures from, instead of coming out of the general fund, perhaps coming out of more of the restricted funding, depending on, of course, that has to be used within certain rules and boundaries. But I think that also needs to be looked into. Another consideration, too, is your employees, some of the employees that you have, in this time and age, you have two-income households. And sometimes we're giving out benefits to people that already have benefits by their spouses. I'm wondering if any of the employees have perhaps been canvassed to that effect and then asked to maybe forego their benefits because they're already seeing benefits from another source. So why spend the money on it? I don't think furloughs address the primary problem, and that's some of the excessive salaries and benefits and raises that have occurred in the recent past for our city. As mentioned by, I believe, John, it was, looking from the top down, I think some of that's absent as far as looking into, because it involves some of the people sitting on the staff right here, right now. It's a conflict, honestly. Perhaps some of them should recuse themselves because we're not seeing all of the possible ways to look at making these solutions happen. I think it's possible to be able to make these numbers work without even using the reserves. But the numbers need to be looked at to a lot more in depth than they have, at least as far as some of the upper management, salaries and benefits. Are the consistent erroneous comparison of Dixon to Vacaville and Fairfield and Davis and other large neighboring cities is ridiculous at best. I think cuts as these, could reduce the impact upon the city providing its services to the citizens, which is its primary purpose. And not cutting some of the boots on the ground, some of the people that actually take care of your business and do your work and get things done are not the people to start off with. Again, starting with the top, I think is vital. In the Marine Corps, we say, hey, leadership by example, just because money exists also doesn't mean it needs to be spent. And that also seems to be typical of government. It's not a good way to go. Additionally, I think some additional policies might help too. Overtime and unnecessary and unusual expenditures should be signed off perhaps by the department managers. And then that way, if it's reviewed later on and some shady things are brought to account, that person signed their name to it. And they're either going to pay for it or they're going to be asked to resign.